The EP Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at theeppodcast.com.
And bellying up to the 9-foot homemade oak bar. Pour yourself a cold one. My name is Chris. It is a Football Friday here on the EP Podcast as we get ready for the Friday night lights that is EP Mustangs football. Head Coach Jerry Verde going to be on this show this week as always. This is in addition to the normal 30 minutes of good that comes out each and every Monday and is always on demand anywhere podcasts can be found and always at theeppodcast.com. And the EP Podcast and every show we put out is brought to you proudly by the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. They invest in the Evergreen Park community. After all, they love this area as much as you do. Plus, their Total Access checking account gives you a free ATM anywhere, nationwide. They're all free. If they take money out of your account, they put it back in there. And a $300 bonus on top of that with qualifying activities. Paired with their mobile banking tools and award-winning customer service, switching to a true community bank has never been easier. Start banking locally today, just like I do, at bankevergreenpark.com/300. $100 required to open, no minimum monthly balance or monthly maintenance fees. Use that link to apply or stop in and see them in that iconic building at 95th and Pulaski. Member FDIC. They got some big CD specials over there. My grandfather used to love to go out and buy CDs, especially in times like these. An 11-month CD is 3%, 26 months, 3.25% over at the First National Bank of Evergreen Park. Couple of things going on this weekend, just to remind you, a couple of them we've already covered on previous shows. If you want more details, all those episodes are on demand, available to you. But you heard about Logan's Heroes when Stockyard Kilty Band was in here. It's a benefit for one of their fallen. That is this Saturday, 115 Bourbon Street. Get your tickets through Eventbrite. $30 ticket includes admission, 4 hours of open bar, buffet, 50-50, raffle baskets, silent auction, photo booth. There's also $10 tickets for anybody who's under 21. Unless you are 5 and under, those kids are free. You can get them online at Eventbrite, or you can get tickets at the door. Also this weekend, you heard it on the episode that just came out before this one on the EP Podcast feed, still available on demand. The Evergreen Park Fire Department is having their open house this Saturday, 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. at 9000 South Kedzie Avenue. And the Fantasy Fest also talked about happening this Saturday, 11 a.m. until 4 p.m. at the EP Senior Center, 9547 South Homan Avenue. Plus, Saturday night, Smokin' Joe and the karaoke over at the American Legion, 97th and Kedzie. Get out there, it's a good time. And if you want to laugh, you could see me playing saxophone. I know what I said. Brother Rice Homecoming, I'll be in the stands with the Brother Rice Mother Macaulay Band. 1, because I'm an alum, and 2, because my daughter plays in the band, and any chance you can get to embarrass your teenage kid, you take it. I'm dusting off the Letterman jacket from 1995. You know I am. Make sure you're subscribed. You don't miss an episode. After this episode, there's one out each and every Monday. Anywhere podcasts can be found and always at theeppodcast.com. It's 30 minutes of good covering Evergreen Park and the surrounding area. Head Coach Jerry Verde of the Mustangs is next right here on the EP Podcast. Building relationships, supporting the community, and service. These are the things that Country Financial stands for. They're more than just an office you may pass by as you drive through Evergreen Park. They're neighbors who lend a helping hand and support the fabric of your community, including charitable organizations, sports, financial education, and civic organizations. And since Country is already your neighbor, they want to get together and chat. Call your local Country Financial representative, Mike Thauer, today at 708-425-1559 to talk about the things that are important to you and how he can help you protect them. And back again for another week here on the EP Podcast. Head coach of the Evergreen Park Mustangs, Jerry Verde. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Hey, you should be doing good. Got another win under your belt. I mean, what the heck? You're sitting up. I'm looking at the conference standings right now, and it's a little top heavy. right now in the conference. When I look at the fact that like Richards is 4-0 in the conference, 4-3 overall, and then you've got Evergreen Park and Eisenhower both at 3-1 in the conference, 5-2 overall. Revis would be right there if you wouldn't have beaten them, and because they're 3-2 in the conference, right behind that grouping. It's a little top heavy at the top, and you have a contest coming up against Eisenhower. We're going to get into Eisenhower and that matchup, but what's your impression of the conference you're playing in this year?
There's a decent amount of parity this year. Most of the games have been pretty good. Even when you look at for instance, in the conference standings, just taking someone like Oak Lawn, we only beat them 28-23, and they were right in that game. So there's a lot of parity in the conference, and even adding Argo in there, if you see some of their scores, they've been very competitive too, and they're right there. So you never know what you're going to get. You have to have a good week of practice in order to be able to compete, and that's the conference this year, really is, and that's a good thing. At least it can be.
You survived the distraction that is homecoming in a big way. 41-14 victors over Shepherd on your homecoming this past Friday. Give me some highlights. Tell me what it was like out there. You didn't get a lot of home games this year on the schedule. We've talked about why that is in previous episodes, and to be able to jump out there in homecoming and have a big win like that must have been just made you feel good.
It did. It was a nice night, and there was a very big crowd. But like we talked last week, a win like that doesn't happen by accident. The players earned it during the week. We had a really good week of practice, and the effort was very high. And because homecoming is such a distraction, it caused a lot of the players and maybe coaches included to really add some extra focus to make sure that they didn't get distracted, and that the importance of the game was always kind of right in front of them, and we were able to do that. And then as far as the game itself goes, we played very well. We talk about execution all the time, and especially offensively, we executed really, really well on Friday night. And Dejan made a lot of really good decisions, and the running backs ran hard, and the receivers made some great catches, and it kind of all came together, and you can't do any of those things unless the offensive line plays well, and they were able to do that.
I've had people ask me when, they bump into me. I was at Oktoberfest, the Evergreen Park Oktoberfest this past Saturday. People who are following the program walk up and they'll ask me my impression of the team. And I'm like, I don't know. I just talked to the coach. He tells me what's going on, right? But they'll tell me, and the first thing I'll say is, well, what I keep hearing him repeat over and over again is the line play, and the fact that these guys have played together for a long amount of time, and that we anticipated early on in the season when we started talking that could make the team go far. And it does allow for your quarterback, running back, skill position players to shine because you have that very strong base at your line. And it seems to me like what we talked about at the beginning of the year as a possibility that the line could be the anchor has really come through, especially in victories like last week.
Right, and it goes back to the old saying, as much as the game has changed, it stayed the same. Without a good offensive line, without a good defensive line, there's only so much smoke and mirrors that you can kind of manufacture to cover that up. You can either can be competitive at the line of scrimmage or you can't. And if you can't be, that's when you start going to, a lot of gimmicks instead of concentrating on concepts. The difference between gimmick and concept, the difference between, running a trick play or building off of plays and setting things up. And with our line, this year we've been able to definitely do that. So, it's been a big help to us this year, and we, obviously we got to stay healthy and keep that going.
41 points on the board this past Friday. Your quarterback looks like he had a big game when I take a glance at it. Is he your player of the week?
Absolutely. He, for as much as he struggled against TF South, and he'd be the first one to tell you that he did, he came out and really played well on Friday night. His decision-making was great. His reads were very good, and he ended up being 10 for 16. He passed for 160 yards and 3 touchdowns, and had a big pass at the end of the half for 37 yards. And Then he also had 15 rushes for 142 yards and put two touchdowns in on the ground. So, he accounts for 5 touchdowns, and he just really did a nice job. And it's a testament to the kind of, young man that he is. It would have been really easy for him after TF South, after what went on, to feel bad for himself and have a pity party. But instead, he got to work and he improved and he did everything he needed to do. And now he understands that he's got to be able to carry that forward. We've got to be able to carry that forward into this week.
Last couple of weeks, I've heard you bring up a few times decision-making at that position, and also there's, a couple of plays that have been key plays have been run-pass options. I would imagine as a coach, you don't put a lot of those plays in unless you trust the quarterback, and there's a lot of work there, and you have to be sure he understands exactly how to read a play. How much trust, I'm sure you had it at the beginning of the year, but has that grown throughout the season for you?
Yeah, he continues to build off of that, and now that he's got 7 games under his belt as a junior and started all last year, 10 games, that growth needs to be there, and it should be there, and it's one of the things that people, the casual football fan always takes for granted is the fact that the quarterback is responsible for so much if you're going to run something complex, on offense. And if the quarterback can't handle, everything that goes along with running a complex offense, well, then guess what? You can't run a complex offense. It all has to be simple. And so, he's been able to take that, and he's really taken the reins and run with it. And like any sport, you're going to have a bad game or a bad play, and he's not immune to that. But he's definitely, as you look at his body of work over this entire season for 7 games, he's done a really nice job for us, and we just keep expecting more.
Last home game of the season, regular season, Friday night, 7 p.m. in Evergreen Park. And like I mentioned them earlier on, right up at the top of the standings, it seems like every time you're playing someone, they got a record that's the same as yours, and they're up there at the top. You got Eisenhower coming to town. Tell me a little bit about this game.
Eisenhower's a talented team. They had a lot of returning starters from last year. They have a good quarterback. They've got good receivers, running backs. Their offensive line fires out. They block downfield. And defensively, they're one of those teams that kind of fly around and get to the football. And, the film we've watched on them, they've been good. They've been very good. And they've been right in, even in their losses, they've been right in those games. So, it's going to be a challenge for us, just like, as I've basically said almost every week. Most games, are a challenge for us. We believe we can compete with them, and we're looking forward to the game. But there's a lot of different things you have to defend against when you're playing Eisenhower, especially this year, and we hope to be able to do that.
You got 5 wins. Generally, that means you got a really, really high chance of making it into the postseason. You got a really tough opponent coming up here. You're just coming off a big win. Tell me what you're preaching to your team, because you don't want them to take their foot off the gas. You don't want them to look at those 5 wins and say, okay, fine, we got the big win over Shepherd. You want them to be hungry. You want them to go out and get this one. You want them to get the 6th win. You want to get them the 7th win next week and finish off the season strong. What are you preaching to your boys?
Well, that's easy, because I'm a history teacher. So you just look back at your season, the history of your season, and after a big win against Revis, we didn't have a real great week of practice leading up into TF South, and we went out and played against TF South thinking that we could just, go out there and it would just magically happen. And we learned that valuable lesson that it doesn't magically happen. You have to earn victories, especially victories against good teams. And we've been able to put together a pretty decent week of practice. I'm sure Eisenhower's been dealing with the wet weather just like we have. But the focus has been there, and the understanding's been there from the players. I mean, they did learn a valuable lesson after Revis and going into TF South. So all we really need to preach is just, hey, remember what happened last time we were in this situation, feeling good about ourselves, and we didn't put the work in that we needed to put in to be successful. You don't want to let that happen again, and they don't. As I've been saying since the beginning, we've got a really great core group of guys, on this team that are highly committed, and they live and they die with it on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, and And they understand. They understand what we have to do to be successful.
Big game, tough competition. EP hosting Eisenhower. Friday night, right here, 7 o'clock in Evergreen Park. Get out there and support the Mustangs. Head coach Jerry Verde is nice enough to join us each and every week, and I look forward to talking to you again next week. We're going to probably have to put it out a little early, though. Thursday night game next week against Argo, but we're going to focus on Eisenhower right now. Good luck this weekend, Coach.
Thanks, Chris.
Another show is wrapped up. Another show's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. And then by the looks, it's gonna be a good one. And we'll see you next week. And the nude is basement. And the nude is basement. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And it's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And by the looks, it's gonna be a good one. Nudie's Basement. Broadcast Basement. The Nudie's Basement. The Broad Basement. Slancha.
The EP Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at the eppodcast.com.